Look around you. So much of our modern world is new. New ideas, new buildings, new narratives. And that's great. Change is necessary for progress. The whole world gets it. So how is it possible that despite all this progress, we still learn in the exact same way our grandparents did? Our education is evolving so slowly. But why? What if your education could evolve and improve as quickly as the world around us does? What if your education was designed to help you discover who you really are? If students were created like co-creators instead of just products? If there was a space meant to build connections between teachers and students? A place where safe space doesn't mean you'll be shielded by censorship. Where liberty isn't just what you learn, but how. Your education should keep up with the rest of the world. And now, it can.
Hola, me llamo Heather Whiteman, and today I want to talk with you about the power of HR analytics. Today I will be talking about one of my favorite topics, and I will be joined by my friends, Misael Cerpas and Silvia Barriga. Es maravilloso estar hoy contigo. Disculpe, mi español no es muy bueno, entonces prefiero presentarles en inglés. Gracias. As I said, my name is Heather Whiteman, and this presentation will be in English, but feel free to comment in Spanish or in English and have fun with us. So I'm going to start by introducing you to the topic of HR analytics, and then I will have my friends join and talk about some instances where they have used it as well. If you haven't heard of HR analytics before, it is the way that we think about using data and insights to improve business outcomes and help us with decision-making in HR and in business. You'll also hear it called people analytics or workforce analytics. So there's a lot of terms to talk about this really powerful idea around how do we use data for gaining insights and leading to outcomes. Before I talk about it a little further, I would like to know how you feel about it. How do you feel about using data and analytics in HR? Here's some options. Please use the comments or the chat and tell us how you feel about using it. So go ahead, type, tell me, do you love HR analytics? Do you know about it and you want to use more of it? Do you think it's useful, but you don't really use it? Do you not really know what it is yet? Are you unsure and you're still learning? Or do you not like it at all? Are you here because you have to be here, but you don't really like data and you don't like analytics? Oh, great. I'm seeing in the comments, fantastic. A lot of people are unsure. We have a lot of people who are unsure about HR analytics. We have people who believe it's useful, but want to be able to do more. These are great. Keep them coming. We have a lot of people saying they or say. Really nice to see those coming in. So yeah, feel free to keep commenting. We'd love to see the action in there. Oh, look, Danny is an A. Danny loves it. So fantastic to see you there. Same with Mariana. Very nice. All right, so I'm going to give you a little bit of understanding whether you are a B, a C, an A. You know, if you're like Paulina and you're unsure, then hopefully this presentation will be useful to you. So HR analytics, why now? So those of you who might not know a lot about this or might be unsure, you might think that this is a new thing, that HR analytics is new. And it's somewhat new. It's becoming more common and more popular because there is more data about people and about businesses than we've really seen before. We now have so many tools and technology that is gathering data about people and about businesses. We have this situation where we are trying to hire the right people. We're trying to have them join our company. We're trying to retain them, not lose them through attrition. So this competition for keeping people makes it important. And also, we just have people expecting more insights from data. And as many of you know, we have situations like a global pandemic that has disrupted the way that we think about people at work. So HR analytics really helps us do all of these things. And that's why we're seeing it so much more now than maybe you had seen in the past. And it's really something that business leaders are saying that HR analytics is a top priority within companies now. This wasn't always true before. This is a pretty new finding. Businesses are now saying that data and analytics is what they want to see from HR teams. And even HR leaders are saying it as well. So when a group of HR leaders were asked about people data and HR analytics, they put it at the very top of the list for the most important things that are being done. It was actually tied only, it was at the top shared space for people data and working with the senior executives. So working with the top of the business and people data were the top rated things. So we are definitely seeing that others are aware of the value of HR analytics and how important it is, which can make it really important to think about how can we, those who might work in HR or work with HR, or maybe those in school working towards psychology and other areas, how can we help get that strategic value? I won't read this slide to you, I'll leave it here, but I wanted to show you the strategic value that comes with HR analytics. There are lots of studies and examples that show just how much value HR data and analytics can bring to a company. So there are studies and there are organizations that have found that by using data, by using analytics about people, we can make a really big difference in how companies operate and how they run. And that's because HR analytics can do a lot of things, HR analytics can help us hire and recruit. It can help us make sure our employees stay and they don't leave or attrit. It can help us identify learning, ways that we can help people learn and grow. It can help with listening and understanding how employees feel. It can help us plan for our future. It can help us be more effective and efficient. It can help with being inclusive and help with a sense of belonging for our employees. It can help as we look at people moving around the organization, around how we reward and pay people, and much, much more. I'm going to stop there because I don't have enough room on my slide to keep listing the things that you can do with HR analytics. You can do so much with HR analytics. And to give you a sense and an example, I have asked my friends, Misael and Silvia, to share with us an example of using HR analytics and how we think about it for understanding employee attrition and how we can use it for planning future workforce needs. So I'm going to have Misael introduce himself first and talk to you about how HR analytics can help us think about attrition. And then I'm going to have Silvia introduce herself and talk about how we can use HR analytics to plan for the future around workforce. So with that, I'll ask Misael, can you help us understand how HR analytics really applies to attrition and employees leaving?
Absolutely. So in case you were wondering, I'm a A on your poll. I love analytics. So hi, everyone. My name is Misael Cerpas, and I hold a master's degree from San Jose State in San Jose, California. While I was obtaining my master's, I learned about the field of people analytics, and I completely fell in love. So now for 6 years, I've been lucky enough to practice people analytics and see the power that it brings to organizations. So in this example, I'm going to show you how people analytics could help you understand attrition, but it could also help you solve an attrition problem. So there's two types of attrition: voluntary attrition and involuntary attrition. Voluntary attrition is when employees decide to leave an organization on their own accord. An example is resignations. Involuntary attrition is what the organization decides to end the employment relationship. A couple examples are employees might, the organization might choose to move on because of performance issues, or it could be due to cost cutting or layoffs or a change of strategy. There's various reasons. So why is attrition a problem? Attrition is a problem because the cost of replacing an employee is twice the cost of the employee's salary. Of course, this is on average. It could vary from industry to industry, from location to location, but no matter how you cut it, the reality is that attrition is bad for business. But fear not, because people analytics could help, but it all starts by measuring it. Okay, so how do you measure attrition? There's various ways of measuring attrition. What I'm going to share with you is a simple way, yet a very effective way of measuring attrition. So the formula for attrition is the number of exits divided by the average headcount of 2 time periods. I think an example would help here. So let's say you wanted to measure voluntary attrition. You know that in September 2019, you had a headcount of 3,000 employees. In September 2020, you had a headcount of 3,335 employees. During this same time period, you lost 1,300 employees to voluntary attrition. Knowing these numbers, all you have to do now is just plug in the numbers to the formula. So to calculate your voluntary attrition, you would divide 1,300 by the average of 3,000 plus 3,335. This would give you an attrition rate of 41%. That is a big problem. Now you could quantify your problem. You have a 41% attrition rate. Now you could go to your leadership and say, hey, I think we have a problem here. Look at this rate. We need to do something about it. Congratulations, you're at the first step of solving your issue. So what I have here is a storyline or a story chart. On the y-axis to the left, you have good fortune at the top, bad fortune at the bottom. On the x-axis, we have time, or the passage of time. We just learned that we have an attrition rate of 41%. So we'll start at the bottom left with the sad face. Everyone's sad. The organization is sad because you're losing money. The organization is losing money. Employees are sad because they're deciding to leave. They're no longer happy. Those who are staying are seeing their friends leave. It's a bad situation, but don't worry, it gets better. Now that you know your attrition rate at 41%, you could do something about it. And people analytics could be a great tool to help you solve this. So you start to think, what might be some reasons why employees are leaving? And you work in HR and you see that your department is doing great. Your employees are happy. They know they have an attrition problem, but you're not seeing your colleagues leave. You start to think, is this problem focused in different departments, different locations, by different groups? So now that you know how to calculate attrition, you start to apply analytics to try to find the groups that have high attrition rates. Let's say in this hypothetical situation, you look at the data in many different ways. and you identify that there's 2 departments that are contributing the most to your attrition rate. Now you could be very focused on solving your issue. So the next step is you want to find out more information. If you have more data on those 2 departments, you could definitely analyze it to get insights on what's going on. But if you don't have any more data, you could collect data. Now, most organizations do exit interviews, and those are great. You could find a lot of good information on why employees are leaving that way. But sometimes employees on their way out, they don't want to cause any problems. They've already decided to leave. They just want to get their stuff and go. So I recommend that you also do stay interviews. Now, in stay interviews, you could find out why employees are staying, but you could also find out what are the problems that you have in your organization. So now you've decided to do stay interviews. You want to talk to employees in the 2 departments that you identified as having high attrition. You talk to employees, and if employees trust you to make a difference, they will tell you what's going on. See, they work at this organization. They want to go to work and be happy. So if they trust you to make a change, they're going to tell you what's going on. All right, so now you've collected the information. You talk to employees in these departments. The storyline goes down again because you start to get really sad that you have 2 major problems that you need to fix. But then you start to get happy again because now that you know the problem, you know the departments where the problem resides, you could generate solutions. You get together with your team and you come up with great solutions on how to solve this problem. The next step is to implement the solution. So you implement your solution, you continue to track attrition. A month later, you see that your attrition has diminished by a small margin. Okay, you decide to keep the solution and keep going. A couple months later, it goes down some more. Now, a few months later, you check your attrition rate and it has gone down significantly. You talk to your employees, they're very happy. They give you feedback on how the solutions you're implemented had made a big difference in their work life. Congratulations, you've effectively used people analytics to identify a problem and fix it and drive a great business outcome. All right, so now I'll hand it over to Silvia to talk about strategic workforce planning.
Great, thank you, Misael. So hi, everyone. My name is Silvia Barriga. I am a strategic workforce planning manager with background as a psychologist and a master's degree in social psychology. Absolutely passionate about data. And I think now after a few years working, I do see the benefit of it. And I want to walk you through some examples or a specific example actually on how can HR analytics help you plan for your future workforce needs. So let me walk you through it. All right, so what is strategic workforce planning? You may be wondering, what is that? What do you do with it? And actually what you do with it is very simple. You think about, do you have the right people in the right job, at the right place, at the right time, and at the right costs? So basically what you do here is right people. Do you have the skills? Do you have the right numbers of people? When you look at the right job, you go through, do you know your current roles? Do you know your future roles? And are you ready to staff those? And how is the talent and demand of those roles in the market? Then right place. Do you have people in the right place? Could it be that you have hired people in the wrong city or in the wrong country or in the wrong job? And then, of course, the right time. Are you recruiting people at the right time? Do you have them ready? Are they productive enough, soon enough, so that they can help you be efficient in your organization? And then the right costs, as you can imagine, and this is like the first idea that will pop out, is salary and benefits. But on top of that, you need to add costs. Cost of hiring, cost of contingent workers or contractors as we call them. So looking at your cost as the total workforce cost instead of just a tiny bit of the cost of the employee. So let me now move into how do you do it? What do you do with this and where to start? So for me, the key thing, and I would say like the bottom line that I want you to take is always think about business strategy. It's key that you understand your business strategy. It's key that you understand the business context. So when you work in an organization, it's important to know, how does success look like? How do you measure it? What's driving success? What are the catalysts that make things happen? Then with that, you can do that environmental scan. And by environmental scan means, how does the competition look like? What's happening in the market? What's happening in the economy? So those are things that are important to take into account. Of course, you need to understand your current workforce. And part of that is understanding your talent segments. Do you know how your segments are? What are the key roles? Where are they based? Do you have the right people in the right key roles? And then what are the critical skills now and the critical skills for the future? Understanding your talent supply and demand. That means, do you know how many roles are out there similar to the ones that you have in your organization? And do people actually want to work for you? Those are things that are important to look into. Of course, defining future needs. Organizations change, and if you understand the business strategy and the context, then you can help define how the future looks like and what are going to be your needs for the future. And at the end, of course, prioritizing your gaps and solutions. So this may sound amazing in paper, but then let me show you how it looks in reality. So how does this look like? I got a couple of leaders coming to me to say, Silvia, we have this problem statement. So let me read it to you. I'm not going to show you here which country I'm talking about and which cities because of the data privacy for the company I work for, but I want to give you a flavor on how this looks like in reality. So I got the following comment. Silvia, we are planning on building a new manufacturing site in this country. We have identified 3 locations, A, B, and C. And you know what? In the past, we have made the wrong decisions. We made the decisions too fast. We can hardly recruit now after 3 years of creating manufacturing sites in other countries. We cannot retain people. Attrition is crazy. Costs are way too high right now. And competition is fierce. So this time, please, can you do your magic and help us understand what's the best place to build our manufacturing site? Great, awesome. Let me help you. So that's when we go into looking at this. So we go back into that first slide. You need to understand your business context. And by this is, you sit down with your business leaders or your HR partners. And that's exactly what I did. So I sat with the leaders and say, hey, leader, help me to understand. What do you do? So to give you context around this, the organization that I work for is a renewable energy company. So what we do is build wind turbines for wind farms, hydro turbines for hydropower plants, and we have everything around the grid installation. So how you connect those that green energy into the grid. This business in particular was the business that builds the blades of the wind turbines. So when you want to understand blades, what does that mean? So I said to business, help me understand. So they showed me the size of the blade, how many people work for per blade. I asked them, what deals are you tendering for? How many deals are we going to be making in the future? And why this country? So I got all that information from the business, and you make notes and you keep on asking, because asking questions is the key detective work in HR analytics. Questions, questions, questions. And then I said, okay, now help me to understand. You're telling me you had issues right now with the manufacturing sites you built. So what's the issue? And you start asking questions about people, job, place, time, and costs. With all that information in mind, we started looking at those specific locations, A, B, and C. So I said, okay, that's pretty cool. Let's start looking at the right people. What jobs are we going to be recruiting for? And they said, well, 1,000 operators. All right, how do they look like? What are the skills they have? So they explained to me their job descriptions and what they do. Fantastic. Now I know the people. So let's talk about the job. How does the job look like? What do they have to do? And they gave me a flavor on how manual the work is. What experience do you need to have, and how we train employees to do the job. Once you know the people and the type of job, then you go and say, all right, let's go and look at the competition. How does that look like? So location A, location B, location C, what type of roles do we have in those locations from competitors, from outside the market? We had a lot of oil and gas industry in those locations. So high competition, high salaries. So started looking into that. Are they posting for roles? What types of roles are they posting in the market? Are people applying for those roles? So that's how you start building your information on those 2 topics. Then you go into the right place. So right places, let's do an environmental scan. How does city A looks like, city B, and city C? Then you start looking at the cost of living of each of those cities. Then you look at the unemployment rates, because you want high unemployment rates, because that means that there's more people outside looking for jobs, so it's easier to attract talent. Characteristics of the area. So we looked as well at, is it a rich area, a poorer area, with higher education, lower education? So with that in mind, we came into location A, is a location with high unemployment, low cost of living, and low educational skills, which is a benefit for us from our strategy, because we can train people, we can bring people into the organization, bring their families. That's part of our employee value proposition. So our favorite place was A. Place B was awesome. One issue, competitors. When you look at your landscape, we had a direct competitor very close to us. That was issue number one in the places where we were not successful before. So that's something that we looked into and we say, it could be good, but too risky. And location C was awesome, great, but a rich area, high levels of education, which means higher costs, higher salaries, higher cost of living, a little bit more difficult to attract talent, and very low unemployment. So with that in mind, we had that package, right? And then we look at the right time. You ask the questions around, so by when do you need the people? It's not for next week. It's in 3 years' time. We're going to be at 1,000 operators in the plant. But in a year and a half, we need to have 500. So you start asking the question, how do you train them? How long does it take to recruit? By when do you need them? And from the people that you train, how many actually are successful and stay in the job? So when you look at that, you know you're going to have to start recruiting people about 6 months in advance of going into production. So another thing to take into account, how fast can we do it? And then right costs. Here you work better with a multidisciplinary team, in the sense of you look at the salary and benefits and perks of doing those type of jobs. How much do you pay per shift and extra hours and all that good thing? But you also look with finance and with properties. Do we have tax benefits? Do we have some financial benefits? Do we have agreements with that local government to have some benefits on the financial side? And on the property side, also good to know how much more expensive is building that manufacturing site in those locations, just to have a general view of how this looks like. So basically, when you have all these, what you do is that you build a package with your recommendations. So as a workforce planner, that's exactly what you do. You don't go to convince the business and say you have to do A. But we went there and say, this is the picture. You have A, B, and C. This is what we like from each of these locations. These are the risks. These are the benefits. And we recommend location A. Dear business, go ahead and do what you want and what you decide as an organization. So that's basically it. That's how it works. I know it's a ton of information, but to give you a bit of a flavor of the things that you look into. And at the end, what was everything? Data. From our people data, market data. So the key thing here for me is help the business make decisions based on facts and on data. And just be helpful with them to avoid them making decisions on gut, but making decisions with a mix of both. Because I think in business, you need a bit of both. So that's everything from my side. So Heather, now back to you.
I was on mute. Thank you. Thank you, Silvia. Thank you, Misael. Fantastic examples. Thank you for explaining. I was so excited to join Misael and Silvia here in this conversation with you, because they are HR analytics professionals. They have built skills around how to use data and analytics in their jobs, in their careers, and they are among some of the best people for how can we use data in HR to get that strategic value that I was talking about earlier. The other reason why I was excited to come and join you on this conversation in partnership with UFM is I think it is so important to build HR analytics skills. So I didn't tell you in my introduction, but I also have a psychology degree. And then I went on to get a PhD or doctorate in human capital, meaning how, the value of people. And now what I focus on is, after spending a lot of time in the industry and working in roles, helping organizations use HR analytics, now I'm really focused on how do we help people learn HR analytics skills. So I now teach HR analytics or people analytics at universities in the US, like UC Berkeley, and in the continuing studies for Stanford University. And the reason for this is because HR analytics skills are now so in demand that future HR leaders or HR leaders today who are looking to apply their skills, they really need HR analytics as part of how they do their job. And so the fun part about being here with you all today is we want to inspire you, especially those of you who said that you were unsure about people analytics, or that maybe you want to use more of it. So if you said B or C, we want you to be excited about it. We want you to become those people who said A in the chat and who said that they love it and use it, because it's so valuable to your career, to the way that you can be a leader and give strategic value. I'm going to give you a couple more tips and thoughts on growing the skills, but then we will have questions and answers. So feel free, if you have questions, go ahead and start putting those into the chat. Maybe there was something that Misael shared or that Silvia shared. If you have a question about those or something I've said, please feel free to start adding that to the chat while I go through just a couple more slides, and then we'll be happy to talk through your questions. So as I was saying, building your HR analytics skills is now something that you have to do. It's no longer a nice to have skill set. It is a critical skill set for the future of HR. And if you are studying in this area, and if you are going, or if you're currently working with people in an organization, this is going to be something that continues to be more and more popular and to be needed more often. And so there are some things that you can do to gain the skills and to use it to advance your career. So first of all, you're already doing it right now. You joined this conversation and you saw an example of using analytics to think about attrition and how we can retain employees. You saw an example of how you can use analytics to plan for your organization and its workforce needs. But you can also continue to learn from others. So I know that the UFM team is very excited to be bringing and offering new topics and ideas around HR analytics that you could learn from. So there are opportunities to learn through classes from other experts. You can also learn just by practicing, just by looking at what data is out there. And it might be data inside your company, or it might just be reading or about articles and about examples that others have done where you can pull that information in. Like Misael was mentioning, he referenced other research on the cost of attrition. So you don't have to do the analytics yourself. You can just learn more about it and use it. And that gets to my next point, which is you don't have to be good at numbers. So in the comments, I'd actually love to see, tell me, like type a little response. Tell me if you're a little afraid of math. Tell me if you think you're not good at math. Go ahead and there's gonna be a couple people, if you're brave enough to say it. There's a lot of us who don't feel good at math. It's scary. Maybe we didn't do it a lot before. And the nice news is, so Olivia, thank you. Olivia is terrified. Olivia, that's okay. Maria, you are afraid of it. Rosa's afraid of it. That's okay. I'm going to tell you a secret. It's not a secret because I'm telling you, but I failed statistics when I took it the first time. I mean, I did really, really bad. Oh, Sylvia's saying her too. I thought I was horrible at math. I couldn't believe that, what is this stuff? But what happened was I kept learning. It was actually in my psychology program. I learned that you could do such powerful things with it, that you could help people get jobs. You could help people have a great career. You could help organizations succeed. That once I saw what you could do with it, then all of a sudden I started being more excited about it. And that excitement helped me learn it. And I learned from people who are passionate about it. And so if you are bad at math, please do not let that stop you. If you think that it's too late to learn analytics now, doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, what program you're in, it's not too late to start using it. And then it's a muscle and a skill. You will get better at it if you take courses, if you listen to others, if you try, if you practice. It's just like anything else. You'll get better as you practice. I'm practicing my Spanish. I will get better because it's a muscle and a skill. And if you work at it, it will grow. So definitely just know that wherever you are right now, HR analytics is a powerful thing. If you are afraid of math and you know any of the people in the comments who said they aren't afraid of math, make friends with them. So make friends with Sophia, make friends with Sophie and Samantha. They should be your friends because they're not afraid of math, and you could partner with them and do more things. So, with that, we are going to switch over to some questions and comments. I know I saw at least one pop in earlier. So feel free at this time, write us some questions. Do you have any comments, things that you want to share? And we would be happy to work through those items and chat with you. And while you're working on additional questions, I'm going to go ahead and start with a couple that have already come in. So thank you very much. Apologize if I pronounce your name incorrectly, but Sophie has said, what metrics or KPIs are used today to measure the effectiveness of internal communication processes and stakeholder engagement? So that's our first question.
If you want, Heather, I can take it.
Go for it.
So what we do in the organization that I work with is that now we have an internal survey that is done on every 3 months or every quarter. We go through a survey that has some topics around that, right? Through those topics, you can have questions that can help you measure engagement. So you start with a baseline with some of the questions on how engaged are you? And of course, it's not as direct as that, but you have questions of the kind of, do you like the company you work for? Do you have a good relationship with your manager and you feel valued by your manager? Things along those lines. You get a baseline, and then every quarter when you measure it again, you can start seeing if there's either a trend that people are not engaged, or they want to leave, or they leave comments that show that there's something happening, and then you can start acting upon that. And then when you act and you have things going on and you measure it again, then you may see that trend changes. That's one way in which you can measure, because something like engagement is a difficult one to do. You could also look at information from attrition, right? So if you have data, and I think Misael is more of an expert on that front than I am, you can look at leaving reasons. And then through the leaving reasons and the exit interviews, get a sense of what's going on there, and then jump into the stay interview to be able to solve for some of those issues. Those would be like the first things that I can think about from my experience.
Yeah, I'll just echo that. I've actually done engagement surveys before, and a lot of the things in people analytics or even social sciences, you have to ask the people. So just make sure that when you create a survey, you're doing good things and you're telling the employee what you're going to do with the information, and make sure that you follow up on the information. You actually do something about it. As I mentioned before, employees will tell you what's going on if it makes a difference.
It's fantastic. Great, thanks. I'm going to go ahead and ask the next question, which is from Krista. So Krista is a clinical psychologist and is wondering how she could employ HR analytics as a strategic skill set. And she's saying she genuinely believes that it has a purpose everywhere. Thank you, Krista. I agree with you. She believes that it has a purpose everywhere, not just working in organizations, and wanted to know our take on that. I definitely have a take, but I'll see if Misael or Silvia have one to start.
Yeah, just quickly, I actually started as a clinical psychologist. I never practiced, but my passion first was clinical psychology, and I thought I was going to be a psychotherapist or a counselor. And then I decided to move into industrial organizational psychology. But I think that a lot of the skills that, at least in the program I was in, transfer well because you do learn about research methods. You learn about, statistics. So these are the connector skills that connect the two topics. Some of those skills that you're learning in terms of conducting a study are transferable to HR analytics and vice versa.
Thank you. If you didn't say it, I was going to tell everyone that Misael was also a clinical psychologist by training first, and then ended up in this area. And, there is sometimes in HR analytics, people forget how important qualitative research is. So that understanding of people's words. So not just the numbers, not just the math, but how do we understand what people are feeling and thinking? And as a clinical psychologist, you have great training in how do we think about the way that a person interacts, the themes and the concepts that come together, and can apply them more directly. And then some additional areas, I've seen that the skill sets in the clinical psychology area work really well for looking at concepts around well-being, inclusion, around internal interactions of how people communicate and connect. And similar to Misael, in the program that I was trained in, clinical psychologists and the HR analytics people were actually in the same classes together, learning the same skills because we could apply them together. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. And thank you very much for saying that, Krista. All right, we have another question from Jorge. Jorge is talking about contact centers and BPOs in Guatemala, and saying how that's one of the places that most HR graduates go as their employer. And so Jorge was wondering, from the experience of working within a contact center, attrition rates can be very high. And wondering if there is something about the rates that might be inherent to the industry that they're working in. And what would you maybe recommend to companies who work in an industry with high attrition rates or have a persistent attrition issue? How might you convince them about how to address attrition?
Yeah, so I'll take this one. So if I was in that situation, I would do the research and find out what have researchers found, right? What are the drivers of attrition? But most importantly, I would get the information from my employees. And that's part of the reason why I frame the attrition as a problem and an opportunity for this specific example. If you could get your attrition rate under control and your competitors don't, then you have a strategic advantage. But my recommendation would be talk to your employees and find out what's going on. You could rely on research so far. It's always great to get information directly from your employees.
Yeah, I will add to that it's great to know the market and understand what's happening in the market, but benchmarks are always a tricky place to compare yourself against, because there is a reality from your organization, there's a reality from your context. So what works in one company might not work for you. So it could be as a line to say, oh, are we above or below the line? But is that better or worse? It's not. That's where if you go into the details of your organization, as Misael is saying, and understand how to even change it by a small percent, that will make a huge difference and will put you in better competitive advantage.
And I'll just, highlight that. Keep measuring it and test things. You might not find the solution right away. You might try one thing and it won't work. and try another thing and measure it. That's why I mentioned keep tracking your attrition rate after you implement solutions. And then hopefully after a few trials, you'll find a good solution for attrition.
Fantastic. So I have another question asking about what courses we would recommend for HR analytics. So I actually would like to ask members of the UFM team to go ahead and reply in the comment. I know that the university is looking at offering more courses and opportunities for students as well as professionals to gain skills in HR analytics. So first, I would recommend reach out to the UFM team, and I'll ask the team to maybe indicate how people can get in touch with you if they're not already. And then also, I would say feel free to connect on LinkedIn and other areas with people like Misael, Silvia, and myself. We tend to share and post on, social media. I post on LinkedIn a lot. Please feel free to connect with me on there, and you'll see articles and items being shared. That's a good way to learn. But definitely connect with the UFM team. And I'm also happy to give you some recommendations around how to access that information. Okay, so Annika is asking a question similar to the one we had earlier on clinical psychology, but what other areas apart from organization and business can we use HR analytics? I'm going to go ahead and start with that one because I can see both Misael and Silvia thinking. So I talk a lot about HR analytics, and sometimes I use a different term. Sometimes I call it people analytics, because HR analytics tends to be about the business, the organization, and the processes that we use around human resources. But there's sort of this other version of this, which is thinking about the person more holistically. And that's where you can see a lot of uses for HR analytics that's outside of organizations and businesses. So I've seen it be very helpful for nonprofit and also just community organization. So you can use workforce planning like Silvia was talking about. You can still use that to help you recruit people to be part of your your organization, even if it's not a company, even if it's a religious or a charity or a community that you are trying to build, you can still use HR analytics to help you do that. And then you can also use it in a more social sciences way and really understand people, understand their motivation, understand how that they connect to others. I've been doing a lot lately with how do we measure social interaction? How do we measure how people connect, how they talk to each other, how they interact, and those type of things. Those are also types of HR analytics or people analytics that don't necessarily happen in the business setting, and there are quite a few of them. So even if you learn the skills in an HR analytics setting, you can learn them in, say, an HR analytics course, but still apply them outside of business as well. So it's a fantastic question. Thank you.
I'll just add that there's a lot of data sets out there that you could download for free. Sometimes they're by the government. They give you information on what's going on in the city, in the country, or many other areas. So what I'm doing right now, I've downloaded the happiness index, and I'm combining the data to see if there's trends across the world and how happy people are. And, again, you can find a lot of free data sets, and you can start doing analytics today, if you please.
Okay. So next question on the list is saying that I'm guessing there are a lot of tools or platforms to apply HR analytics at a company. Pablo's wanting to know, how can we recognize which one to use or which one will be more convenient?
I'll start here, Pablo. And this is one of the best questions ever because we get it in an organization and people think that to do HR analytics or workforce planning, it's just by the click of a button and things happen. And I think the answer there is no. I think tools, you're going to find very different names for them. At the end, you're going to have data sets that are in a database, and then you're going to have visualization tools that are going to help you understand what that data tells you. And then you're going to have another set of tools that are going to help you use advanced analytics, so call it like a predictive analytics, and use like R or Python or tools that are like open source type of tools that can help you complement all that. So I think there's not one single tool. There will always be different tools. It's at the end which one serves the purpose for you and the budget. And I think that will be like in a nutshell what I've lived and what I've experienced throughout the last few years.
Yeah, the simplest one is a calculator, right? if you know the numbers, like I share the attrition formula, if you know those numbers, all you have to do is just, come up with the formula, plug the numbers, and get your solution. I'll share that for my experience, I started with Excel. And I share that because a lot of organizations provide Excel. You can use Excel to do some really cool stuff. So I would start there and move forward as you go on. And you might not even have to. Excel might just be the tool that you use all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fantastic. Thank you. And yeah, I completely agree. I think that you need to start first with understanding the problems or the things that you want to analyze before worrying too much about the tools. There are a lot of really cool tools out there, but they're only good if they match what you're trying to do. And so sometimes it is best to just start with whatever you have already. Maybe you have Excel, maybe you have a calculator. Hopefully you have more than a calculator, but still, start with what you have. And then what will happen is as you go deeper into one question, you might need more advanced tools, but that'll be once you kind of figure that out, then you'll almost know what tool to pick at that point because you'll know what you need. So always start with what you have and learn from there along the way. So another good question popping in here. What do you believe is the most important thing HR analytics does that's imperative to the people you're helping? Okay, I have to start with this one. Annika, fantastic question. The thing that HR analytics does to the people that I focus on when I do this is it gives them a voice. When you are talking about a lot of people, whether in an organization, a community, a country, any grouping of people that you can do HR analytics on, there is often not a clear voice from them. You can use the data and the analytics to help share their message, to help share what's important to them, what they value. For example, Misael was talking about attrition. And if all you do is just say, oh, somebody quit, no, that's not enough. But if you do what Misael said and you do interviews around why did you leave? Why are you staying? You start to give people a voice. So data doesn't take the human out of it. Data helps us share people's message. So I'm very passionate about us as people who have some analytic skills, being able to take that information and share the message that it's sending on behalf of other people. So I love that question. Thank you. Misael, Silvia, anything you'd answer?
Yeah, I think around is the storytelling, right? Data is there. Is what you do with it and how you tell the story. So it's not the same as saying you have 41% attrition. Done. That's great. The business knows it's bad. But then how do you tell the story? And it's the power of telling the story through data that the businesses and the organizations see the benefit from.
And I will add that it provides evidence, right? So if you measure your attrition, you're at 41%. How do you know your solution's having an impact? If you keep tracking your attrition, and then you provide some evidence to show that, I think that what we're doing is making a difference because our attrition rate went down, and you could, better use your resources and make sure that people are happy by putting a number on it.
Yeah, Fantastic. Okay, we have another great question here. This will be a fun one. Depending on how much time we have, this may or may not be the last question, but please feel free to still put them in the comments. We'll try to maybe chat back and answer quickly. But the next question from Maritza is, what is the best HR analytics project you have ever worked on? It's a good question.
I'll take that one first. Maritza, you're putting me in a hot spot because I used to work with Heather, and we worked on many projects. I think my favorite project is we had a system where we measure our people skills or our competencies in our organization. And I was lucky enough to be the analyst for our team. And we actually collected a lot of information on the capabilities and competencies / skills of our organization. And we did a lot of great analysis on, analyzing our capability data. It's a long story, a beautiful story, but that was my favorite project.
Maybe if we do a class with UFM, maybe I can get you to tell that story to the students in the class.
Absolutely. And we're going to need more than a couple of minutes to do so.
Yeah, I was gonna say from my side would be like the case that I share with you. It took us a good amount of weeks, about a month and a half, almost 2 months, to do the whole analysis. But the business was so connected to the feedback we were giving them and the questions we were asking that it was just fun, and feeling that you're helping the business make a good decision and that they're trusting you, that makes it even better. So that type of conversation and the multidisciplinary work with finance, with tax, with the CEO of the business, with the operations leader was absolutely fantastic. So I think like those projects where you look more than just one thing are the best ones.
Yeah. So I will share my favorite example, and I have to pick one from before I was working with, Misael or Silvia. I once was working through a project where the company that I worked for had lost a really big contract. It was going to be a lot of money for the company, and they had about 500 people working on this project, and all of the money disappeared overnight. So there were 500 employees working on a project that was being canceled, and the company was going to lay them all off. They were all going to get a notice, and they were all getting fired. And I learned about this because I was in the HR analytics area, and I said, hang on, this doesn't make sense. We have open jobs. We're hiring in other departments and in other areas. Can you give us 2 weeks to do an analysis of whether or not we think we could take any of these 500 people and offer them jobs in the other departments? And myself and a group of other individuals, we got into a conference room. We gathered all the data on these 500 people. We gathered all the data on every open job in the company. And we started doing a matching process. And we ended up matching more than half of the people to new jobs. We then went through and basically called these people who knew the project ended. They were scared. They didn't know what was going to happen to them and their families. And we literally called them and said, hey, I know your job is going away, but here are 3 different jobs that we think you could be good at. Here's why we think it. We matched your skills from this job to this job. Would you like to apply for it? And we actually measured all of them and put them together, and we saved hundreds and hundreds of jobs. And that was, to me, why analytics can be so powerful. It can help you address those things. So that was a great question to end on. We are right at our time. I do want to just tell you, thank you for joining. Thank you for all the participation in the comments. You might have seen earlier, it was mentioned that UFM will be offering a postgraduate course on HR analytics. So hopefully we might see some of you there, and that we get to see places on that Thank you for spending your time with us. Please follow the UFM Psychology Department on social media. That will be a great way to find out about additional activities like this in the future. You can also go on their website. Thank you so much for spending time with Misael, Silvia, and myself. We really appreciate you and everything. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.